everybody. Very glad to have you here with all of us to talk about football in a period where football is not at max potential. So it's very nice to see that we can all meet together and just speak football, game that we love. My name is Vincent.
I'm Marie-Michelle.
And we're both students at McGill. We're PhD students in School in Applied Child Psychology, which generally focuses on children development. And as we're presenting here, our focus of research is in sports, in particular football. And so we're on our way to become children's psychologists, but we really want to use sports as a tool to connect with children and to favor development over the long term. So that's where we really started with Football Canada. So we do want to take just a few minutes to thank Football Canada, to thank Jamie, Jim, and Aaron who can be here tonight, but they're working very hard for the football community. So we do want to take 30 seconds to send some thank you. We have a message in the chat.
Open the chat and put it to the side.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Another child psychologist is with us right now. Very nice. Nice to meet you. And also we'd like to extend a big thank you to Elite Neurokinetix, which is essentially our team that is also here with us today. There's Alan, there's Pam, that is also in the audience. So if you have questions for them, feel free. Here they are in pictures. So really what we are is a group of people that are really passionate about sports. We decided to get together to combine our strengths from multiple backgrounds and use science and technology to help the sports community. So just quickly, Alan is currently is studying medicine. So he's at Queen's University. He also holds a PhD in neuroscience, also from Queen's University. And Pam is at HEC Montréal. She now has a degree in social entrepreneurship or social entrepreneur. It's in French. And she works with us to make sure that we can have access to as many kids as possible and that we stay really available to everyone that is around. And so the social drive is really coming all from Pam. So thank you both for being here with us and for making such a great team.
So I guess we'll jump right in. So basically, you know, as Vince described, we all come from very different backgrounds. And I think that's what makes us strong as a team, is that all those backgrounds kind of come together and really work well together. And so what that helps us do is to really come at problems from a more holistic approach. We're really focused on looking at the whole individual. So anyone who's come up in sports, you know, the culture has been changing over time, but we've always, you know, heard a very big focus on the athletic development piece, performance. We have to become elite. We have to work on our techniques and on how the way we move and all of that stuff so that we can be the best, you know, physical specimen possible. But, you know, from where we're coming from, we're noticing that, you know, sports can offer so much more to kids and individuals and, you know, even adults. And so we find it really important to be focused on the whole person. And with that in mind, we also want to take a more athlete-centered approach. So really thinking about, rather than trying to give, you know, a very general intervention or a very general approach to getting better to everyone, we're trying to find ways to kind of individualize our interventions so that athletes get what they need, you know, not what someone else needs. And, you know, as we were doing our research in the last couple months, we came across this awesome quote from the IOC, which really aligns with what we're trying to do here. So, you know, the IOC also is arguing now that we need to allow for a wider definition of sports success as indicated by healthy, meaningful, and varied life-forming experiences, which is centered on the whole athlete and development of the person. So that brings us to this idea of looking both at movement and physical well-being, as well as, and we could have probably phrased this better, but emotional or social well-being, that psychological well-being. So we really think that, you know, you really need to combine both of those things to have optimal development in sports, because they really do complement each other very well. And why football? I mean, football because, you know, both the guys on our team played football and coached football. So, you know, that was a natural interest for us. But beyond that, football is really unique among sports. You know, there are many team sports out there, but football is great for physical development. Also, all those other personal, social, psychological development pieces that you see in a lot of sports, and particularly team sports. But additionally, football is so inclusive. I mean, you know, you can look like pretty much anything and you can have any shape or size and fit in a football team. And because of that inclusivity, you know, that lends itself to more diversity in a team and giving kids access to more diverse social groups, more diverse ways of thinking. It just really brings in a lot more benefits. You know, I think we're a little bit biased, but when you really think about all of, you know, the size of the team, everything that surrounds the football culture, there's so much depth and richness there. So that's why football, and I'll leave it to Vince to carry on.
So like Marichelle was just saying, we do look at the physical component as well. And this was our focus really from the get-go. It was reducing concussion risk so that kids can keep on playing for longer period and stay healthy for as long as possible, right, and playing the game that they love. So the goal was really to maximize participation, long-term development, and maximize the quality of play for all the elite athletes. And so this pattern started with Alan, who's with us right now, through his PhD studies. He completed his thesis by creating with us a standardized combine, which includes, just like you see on the picture, just a few drills that we've standardized and tested across multiple players. And so this was done essentially like a combine. So I think if you're in football, you sort of know like the physical combine, what they're like. We could have like a 40-yard dash, you could have a 5-10-5, and all these other tests that you can do. But this one was really more focused on blocking skills and tackling skills. So the player would go through a drill like this. We had 4 principal ones, for example. So 2 tackling, 2 blocking. While they go through these drills, we film them with a video camera. And then as we're done the combine, we get all the data from the film, and then we analyze all that video and determine specific weaknesses and specific strengths, of players and their technique to see where they could better themselves in terms of safety, but also in terms of performance. So once we have that information, we're able to create reports for the players and for the coaches and create a specific intervention that will target these weaknesses and to make sure that they change as fast as possible to maximize effectiveness essentially for coaches. And what we found with this intervention with that group that we studied through Alan's PhD was that with ED sensors, we're able to find a 30% decrease in the frequency of heading back following that intervention. And so this is quite a good finding that we're able to publish in the Journal of Medicine and Science and Sports. And so this really became the driving force behind this movement, where we started going across different provinces and giving this evaluation and making it available for players so that they can also find their weaknesses and strength and make sure that they're getting the best help as possible as individuals, but also as a team, right? So like I was saying, the coaches find it very useful to have this because as a coach, if you know a coach, if you're a coach yourself, you know that resources are often stretched thin, whether it's time, whether it's even video equipment, technologies and stuff like this. So we want to come in and help them make these very specific decisions as fast as possible and as easy as possible so that they can really reach the maximum potential for the players. So the steps are very, very easy. We have a research-based approach. We go on the field. With that information that we get, we optimize coaching, which in the end will end up maximizing the player's potential in the long term.
And as well as their physical well-being, ultimately.
Exactly.
So then, you know, as Vince said, we've been sort of traveling around trying to implement this program, and then COVID happened. So we kind of got kicked off the field. But the silver lining there is that that really gave us time to start thinking about, you know, what's the other wellness piece that we're missing? We're talking about the whole athlete. You know, we've been really focused on physical well-being for the last couple of years. Now we really wanted to look at, you know, what about psychological well-being? And COVID gave us a you know, kind of lovely organic opportunity, as awful as it's been for everyone, to really, you know, see the impact. And, you know, when you don't have something, it kind of allows you to reflect back and think about, you know, how important it really is, you know, once it's gone, right? So we developed a couple studies that we'll kind of talk about briefly. But in essence, when we're really thinking about psychological development in sports and well-being in sports, we're really talking about, you know, looking at ways to increase psychological safety on the field and really promote mental health on the field. And, you know, as much as we know that concussion and safety, physical safety can be related to poor mental health outcomes, what's important to note is that there's also a lot of research that shows that mental health at baseline is related to risk of injury and risk of concussion as well. So that really tells us how important it is that we need to make sure our athletes are in a good psychological state to be able to then perform physically as well over the long term. So I'm going to jump back to our COVID research. So we did a quick survey, and we had thousands of respondents, which was really great. A lot of respondents from the football community. And we just wanted to know, like, how are you coping with COVID? Like, with the fact that you don't have access to your sport. A lot of kids do sports to stay physically active and but also to stay mentally healthy as well. You know, for a lot of kids, sports is that coping mechanism, and they don't necessarily have other ways to cope with, you know, mental health issues or otherwise. So, you know, looking at their mental health within the context of COVID and that loss of sport can also eventually generalize, we hope, to looking at loss of sport in other contexts. So when we think about people kind of, not graduating, but retiring from sports, or when we think about injuries, there are a lot of mental health consequences that can come with that. So COVID kind of gave us an opportunity to look at that on kind of a wide scale for a lot of people at once. So, I mean, the takeaways, there are a lot of takeaways from this study, and we did a whole other talk on that, and there certainly will be other webinars where we go more into detail. But the big thing for us was really that, you know, kids are reporting a lot of sadness, a lot of anxiety, hopelessness, and loneliness. And we know that these are some red flags for more severe mental health issues. So obviously that's very concerning to us. And also more broadly, you know, across other studies that have been done in the States at this time, there's also been a lot of reported increases in stress, anxiety, and depression in young people. And actually recently this week, Montreal just came out, there was a study that just came out in Montreal identifying the people that have been, you know, most impacted and are most anxious about the pandemic. And that included health workers, English Montrealers, but they're stressed about everything, and young people. Young people really stood out as, you know, people in need of a lot of support right now. So I see Katie laughing. English Montrealers, I know, it's a whole thing. So anyways, some more takeaways from the survey though, to kind of segue into the next portion of our talk. Really what came out is that coach-athlete relationships are actually very strong. So we think that this is something that can, you know, be really important and that we can leverage in the long term, not only in this period of uncertainty, but also in other situations to help athletes, you know, help their well-being overall. We also find that, you know, coaches are equally as important as parents in terms of how well liked they are and how trusted they are by their athletes. So, you know, that's an extra adult that is organically in that sports setting, which is a happy and comfortable setting for most athletes, that we can also, you know, like I said, leverage to help well-being. However, coaches feel a lot of pressure. They feel a lot of pressure right now, in particular, to maintain kind of a safe playing environment for their athletes and make sure they're following safety standards, public health standards. And we also found in our survey that coaches are worried about athlete mental health. And so they feel a little bit of pressure to deal with that. And they don't necessarily have the tools to help their athletes kind of cope with these situations. And then finally, we also found that there was a gap between what athletes were telling us anonymously in the survey and what they were reporting to parents and coaches. So, there's a lot more going on under the surface that the adults don't know about. And so we have to find ways to kind of get at those underlying issues. So right now we're going to present one of our kind of pivots in COVID that, one of our solutions, and then Katie will jump in right after to talk about her solution to some of these issues as well.
So as Mary Michelle was just mentioning, there's very much a large portion of issues that are underlying that we need to find a way to get to. And so we've been working on finding solutions, for a long time when we covered like the physical aspect, but also more recently, more urgently, the well-being and emotional side, where we want to be able to get in touch with athletes, and we want to be able to get in touch with coaches and even parents at some point, to make sure that we can provide support when it's needed for the athletes and for the coaches. And so we developed ENK Academy that we just launched in partnership with Football Canada. And it's really this idea of combining the movement and the emotional well-being so that we can maximize emotional development, right? So we want to keep athlete moving, especially during these times, keep them moving as much as we can, keep them motivated, give them hope, and keep their eye really on their wellness throughout this situation until we go back to at least to regular times, and then adjust to more technical components. So right now we do offer performance and physical development. And so the platform allows the athlete to sign in and upload drills of themselves. So not really planned out drills, but really themselves, recording themselves. So really the technique that we use when we go through combines. And instead of us now moving around, because we can't, obviously, we want kids to be able to film themselves and then send it to us. And when they do this, we're able to evaluate their performance on these standardized drills and give them reports, to highlight weaknesses and strengths, so that even though they might not have access on all the coaches and all the equipment they usually have because of the times that we're in, they could still work at home, or if their rules in the province allows to, they can work with their friends. And so we have this process where we also track over the long time. And so once they send us videos and we give the reports and the feedbacks, they can afterwards go practice and go improve that skill, and then send another recording and see where their progression lies. And so really follow the athletes over time. And so this idea really comes like right now that what we're focusing on is the combine, like I was saying. So we do have the blocking and the tackling skills that we're working on being able to share with all the players. And we also included some of the more standard combine, as we could call it. We have right now like the 5-10-5 and the 10-yard dash, the L drill. So you can film yourself, send this, and we can provide feedback for the players in order for them to practice, right? So, and right now we're working on creating a database for the national team. And so when players can send their videos of themselves, we can score them and tell them, well, on a range based on what you gave us, you sort of fall within that range of techniques, and here is what you should be doing to either catch up, or, hey, good job, you're well advanced, for example, for your age or for your position, information like this. So I think it's going to be very useful for players. And with that, as we were saying, Football Canada is really helping us throughout this process. And so they want to be able to provide some sort of certification as that when you went through that training as a player, Football Canada recognizes this and recognizes your efforts through all of this, which is really good, I think, for players, because then it allows players to be recognized at the national level, right? You don't really have to say, well, yeah, I did this thing and it was with my team. And then maybe the other coach says, well, I'm not sure, I don't know your team. Whereas right now we have this centralized, everybody knows Football Canada. So when you get that certification, you're good to go, right? On the more coaches side, which is not available right now, but is going to be very soon, we want to allow coaches to track their team. So both on the physical development and the emotional development. And so right now, if we focus on physical development, like we were saying, just like the players can compare themselves to other players, then we can also compare other teams within a certain region or within a national standing. And we can also compare players within a team, right? So really identifying where coaches can really maximize their time so that their team can gain as much performance as possible, right? So that will allow the coaches to really see the different trends. And like I was saying, we can upload over time, which means that they'll be able to track the progress of their team, by individual players as well, sorry. So we do provide tracking reports for the entire team, but also per position and also per individual, and see exactly where different individual follow, and see, for example, if there's a one or two individual that seem to be falling behind, and we can make sure to catch these individuals before it becomes too late or before they're really, really too far. So we really can monitor that progress both at the individual level and at the team level.
So in addition to kind of the physical and safety piece to the platform, we're also integrating kind of mental health and well-being into the platform as well. We just want to be really clear. I mean, it's not a health service, but we are doing all of this stuff based on research and based on sound principles of sports psychology, as well as positive youth development, and really developmentally appropriate things for youth. So when we talk about youth, it's quite wide, and we know that kids who are 13 look very different from young adults who are 21. So everything will always be kind of adapted to the age group, both I mean, physically, of course, but also from a mental health and well-being perspective. But some of the things that, we're really looking for and looking to kind of promote in, athletes who want to take advantage of this platform is characteristics related to resilience. So, resilient people are the ones who get through crises like COVID-19 better than others. So these are people who tend to be a little bit more sociable, more autonomous. They feel in control of their own fates, their own lives. And they also have strong bonds with caregivers and adults, which brings us back to that idea that, the coach-athlete relationship really is probably one of the key factors in that sports setting for athlete wellness. And then, to promote these factors, we're looking at to promote wellness, we're looking at 3 different factors. A couple of them we can't really change much. So biology, there's nothing we can really do about that. And the environment as well is kind of a case-by-case basis. But our focus here with this platform is to really focus on skill building and giving tools so that athletes can build skills on their own independently, but also so that coaches can kind of support that skill building, both at an individual and at a team level. So just to kind of give sort of the main focuses in terms of where that skill building lies, it's really in areas of emotion awareness and management. So like I said earlier, a lot of kids do sports, and that's their way of managing their emotions. But emotional well-being and management goes far beyond just playing a sport. So, a lot of particularly maybe more vulnerable youth or, youth with learning disabilities, for example, tend to be involved in sports, and it's such a great outlet, but then they don't necessarily learn other ways of understanding themselves and their emotions and managing those things. Another piece is, teaching kids how to cope adaptively. So looking at a problem and finding realistic ways to solve that problem. And then finally, how to deal with challenges and finding mastery and having that mindset of, more growth than sort of a black and white way of thinking about situations. So within the platform, there's going to be a few pieces for athletes to kind of fill out themselves. So there's going to be some self-assessment pieces. We're going to integrate screening tools that really look for kind of red flags related to mental health difficulties. And then we're also building a kind of psychosocial profile that looks at different factors of positive youth development through sport. And so we'll be able to see where some of those strengths lies some of the strengths lie, as well as some of the challenges, the same way we do with the physical development piece. And then finally, with all the information, we'll be able to flag for certain risk factors related to mental health and well-being. And then, sorry, more tools for athletes. So just a summary of that. What that will look like is a library of tools that will support mental health and wellness. So all of these tools, like I said before, they'll be adapted to the athlete's profile, particularly to their age and developmental level, as well as, you know, the sport and kind of specific situations. So say an athlete enters that they have a game and they need help with, you know, managing stress before a game situation, then they could find tools to help them through those times. There'll also be prompts integrated into the platform to remind athletes to kind of use those wellness strategies in times of stress or based on red flags. So when they fill out screeners, if something pops up, then we can kind of prompt athletes to ask for help. And then finally, a list of resources to access, you know, very practical things like helplines and things like that. And then the final piece on the coaches side of the platform, we want coaches to be able to kind of also help promote and build that wellness for their athletes. So, you know, from a more holistic sense or a team-wide sense, there'll be strategies for coaches to work on team building, for example, or individual player development, and really help them develop healthy self-regulation, emotion management, et cetera. Again, adapted to sport-specific situations. And then we really have that big focus on the coach-athlete relationship. So there's gonna be a big kind of resource box for that in particular. And again, finally, a list of resources. So that kind of sums up the platform and kind of our solution. At the end, as we mentioned earlier, we want to keep time for kind of an open discussion about some of these things. If there are things that you've kind of seen during the pandemic or issues that have cropped up that you'd like to talk through or discuss, we're more than happy to talk about some of those things. But right now, are there any questions that anyone would like to ask? Give it a couple minutes.
Like we said, feel free to write it in the chat if you don't want to turn on your mic or your camera or, you know, all are welcome.
All right, perfect. So but just before we pass it off to Katie, last webinar we kind of announced that we'll be doing focus groups. So we do have some interest already. The goal of the focus groups that we want to do is really to talk to people in the football community to get a sense of what the needs are. So we really want to, you know, understand what coaches might need from us, what kind of resources, what kind of tools, what would be most helpful, or parents or athletes. So anyways, we're putting this out there. So if anyone who's here tonight is interested in participating in one of those focus groups, we'll send out an email tomorrow where you can kind of sign up and let us know. But just FYI, so the focus groups are going to be about 5 to 8 participants, approximately 45 minutes long. And, you know, if there's a lot of interest, we can always add more focus groups, but just to keep it in mind. So that's us. We're going to pass it off now to Katie. I'm just going to have to, I think, make you a host.
So Katie, I think you can share your screen now, if I'm not mistaken.
Did it not share? Oh, I thought it had shared, sorry. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Great.
So thank you for that. It's really exciting to see more people taking initiative to help with the younger generation. I think that's been a hole, in my opinion, that a lot of resources haven't really been funneled towards, or at least made known easily. So, and thank you, Football Canada, for letting me come on here and kind of jump on the tail end of this initiative. I think it's great. So what I've come up with, or what I'm trying to collaborate with people like you folks all, is to, again, bring awareness, keep conversations flowing, and I'm specifically targeting high school and university football players in Canada. So Tackle It is a nonprofit mental health and wellness society. So Ethan, Khalil, Matthew, Samuel, Dayton, Elijah, John, Marcus, and a few others that we've heard. All of these kids have either committed suicide or died unexpectedly, you know, through drug overdose, or these are all football players, and they have all passed away since January. These are a lot of kids, and I know that there's more that we don't know about. And I just think I think it's too many, and I think that it is definitely something that needs to be addressed, and that's why I'm so excited to see resources and people coming up with different tools for coaches, because through my conversations, the coaches really have no clue how to help their kids. So I think this is really exciting, but I want to give names to these kids, because I think it's really important that people understand that these are real people. These people have decided to take their lives because they didn't have any support, or they felt like they didn't have any support. And so I think we need to be real about this, you know, mental illness that is affecting our youngsters. So who we are, what is Tackle It, why this is important, and how you can help. So this is what I'll just be briefly going over. So this is on our website. It's kind of a mission statement. And basically, it's just that we want to support players however we can, by giving them resources and just walking alongside them. So basically, we tap in, like you were touching on, the brotherhood of football specifically, and how we can use that, because I think it is a very good vehicle and a very good tool, and the kids feel very comfortable for the most part within that framework. So what is Tackle It? Like I said, it's a nonprofit society, and there's 3 ways that I am trying to, or I would like to incorporate this. So a resource conduit, so a website, tackleit.org. So providing information and resources about mental health and professional services. So partnering with provincial, federal mental health organizations. And I'm just going to take a minute to kind of go to the website here now so that you can see this. Just let this load. Very basic. So our resources here, I have gone through and scoured basically every other mental health organization's website I could find. And I've curated ones that I've thought are, you know, specific to football, and, you know, the major sources here, as well as find a consultant through the Canadian Sport Psychology Association, federal links, provincial links. So I've gone through and found all of the different resources within those provinces, helplines and texting lines will just show you, and broken them down into the various regions. So that's for all of the provinces. As well as there's some other links here and COVID-19 links, but the one that I've partnered with the Buddy Up program, and basically what they did, now this is geared more for the 30 to 60-year-old men, males specifically. They had a focus group of about 50 males on how do men talk to each other. And I was really interested in that, because our youngsters are going to grow up, and they're going to get into that demographic where, you know, male suicide is the highest from 40 to 60 years old. So if we can get them when they're younger and train them and give them tools to be able to talk about their feelings and emotions, I think that that's a great thing that we can do. And so they had 4 steps that they delivered or that they developed, and they made it so simple. It's just, there's pictures, there's not a lot of text, and they gave just guidelines on how to talk to your male friends. And I think that this could be something that could be developed more, obviously age appropriate, but I really liked what they were doing. And they just rolled this out this month, and they have infographics and they have stickers and stuff that you can get. And they also do workshops on how to train people in and having these conversations. So it was something that I was really interested in looking at. Let me go back to the presentation here. So then the tackle talks are what I'm doing every month, and we just had our first one with Adam Bighill, CFL MVP, and I'm planning to have a notable football personality. It could be a coach, a player, TV, TSN person, anything like that, that they come and they share their own experience. Because I think that that's when you look, you can relate to somebody who either looks like you, is in the same program, or does the same type of activities as you. And I think that with kids, if they have a role model that's in the football world, I think that touches them more. And so this next month we have Adrian Davis with Athletic Academy in Montreal. He will be coming on and sharing his story, which is absolutely electric. And just every month having a different person come on, and a webinar. It's an online series, and people can come on during or afterwards. The video will be posted on our site so that you can go on, look at it afterwards and share, and coaches can play it in front of their players, all of that kind of stuff, just opening up conversation. The player peer program is the more hefty part. This is the boots on the ground, and this is more the long-term goal. So why is this important? Fact, over 800,000 people die by suicide each year, and just like 500,000 die by war and homicide. So you can see that this is not something that is going away anytime soon. Male suicide rates are historically higher in Canada, a ratio of 3 to 1, male to female. A myth: talking with someone who may be thinking of suicide reduces the risk they may attempt. And another risk, most people who think about suicide do not want to die. Well, actually, they just want the pain of living to end. So these are from the Center of Suicide Prevention, these statements. Increase in mental illness. I know that you guys touched on, you basically already said all of this. Increase in performance expectations, exposure, future opportunities. With my work, we do a lot with finding talent and prospects and things like that. So I come from it a little bit different in the sense that we scour rosters and huddles and we rank players and things like that. And I talk to a lot of these prospects, and the expectation for them to perform is huge. And no, we're not quite like the States, but we are getting there. And hockey, it would be a good example of where football is heading. So these expectations are huge, and I think we need to give them more tools to be able to handle that. I think it's a good thing to have. I think that you should push yourself to be the best. Some kids need a little bit more on how to handle that pressure. So how you can help, so being a Tackle It ambassador, so promoting our tackle talks via social media, team websites, team meetings. We will do all the work for you. We don't want people to have to put in more than they're already doing. The Player Peer program is, from a high school perspective, we would like the coach to designate a coach or player, but I think a player is too young unless they're super mature, but an individual, an adult, all within that team or support group that is singled out or is designated to be a safe person, in the sense that a player could go to that person because, while yes, relationships with coaches are mostly strong, coaches it can also be a barrier for a player. And so I think it's really important to have somebody that everyone agrees on, that is a mutual person. Within a school, it's a bit different. Obviously, there's legal things that you need to consider, counselors, police, that type of thing, the privacy, all of that has to be followed, which we definitely are not trying to go around. But if a player feels the need to go and has no one to talk to, that they know that they can go to this person and be like, I'm dealing with this. This is how I'm feeling. Can you please help me? What do I do? And so I think it really helps when a player knows that there is a person specifically for that task. I think that's really important. So that's what I'm trying to get the high school coaches to do, and university coaches as well. From the youth sport level, I would like to develop the youth sport, the university players to kind of like a buddy program or mentorship program where the university players go into the football playing schools around them, or community teams, doesn't have to be a high school, and develop these relationships with these kids, either via mental health talks with the team. I know that there are mental health talks that go on in high schools already for the whole school. So obviously we don't want to reinvent the wheel there either, but to have a university player to come in and talk to these kids, they're only a few years removed from where these younger players are. So they can really relate quite closely to what the younger players are coming up, and I think can give really good practical advice to these young players. And it will also help the university players to exercise their leadership skills. Some of them use this for credits. I know that when my husband was coaching in youth sport, that students had to have 50 or 100 hours of community service. So there's a lot of like really win-win situations here. But I would really like to create the relationship between the universities and the high schools by using the players and allowing that friendship or that relationship to develop. So we've got supporters here. The Center for Suicide Prevention is on board, CFC, so CanadaFootballChat.com, Football Canada, and I've spoken to about half of the youth sport coaches and they're on board. So, you know, it's just going to be continually feeding these entities and getting people more and more on board with what you're doing. So this is just kind of the schedule I have lined up for the Tackle Talk. October is Adrian Davis. Angus Reid, I hope most of you know of him. He's fantastic. I've heard him speak a few times. Myself and my husband will be doing December, and then Jeff Cummins from Acadia will be doing January. So, and then from there, I keep calling people. I'm trying to get like Chase Claypool and Chuba Hubbard and other Canadians that are playing in the NFL to try and come and entice kids to just listen to their stories. We do have the social media accounts here. But just if I can quickly just relate why this is so important to me, because I really do feel that when you're partnering with somebody, you need to know where they're coming from, and why I'm really passionate about this. So I was a university athlete. I played volleyball and as well as at Acadia, and I rode for the UFC. So I come from an athlete background, very competitive. My husband played football and then he coached at Acadia. And we worked there for a few years, or for 4 or 5 years after we graduated I graduated with my PhD degree in strength and conditioning concentration. And then my husband got a job at UBC coaching. And so we moved out here for the first time. While we were here, we found out, you know, some life-changing things in the sense that we couldn't have kids. So that kind of set our path on a different trajectory. And that really for me was when I started to go to develop, I don't know if that's the right word, but I fell into some depression, but I didn't deal with it at all. I just pushed myself through. I had my own personal training company, and I ran, you know, I worked with the fire departments, the RCMP, ran their testing, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very driven that way. And it was, I just pushed it aside and it just kind of kept building. And I never reached out to anybody. Wouldn't even know where to look at that point in my life. And so just things kept going on. I was a runner. I used to run marathons, all that kind of stuff. And it got really bad. We moved, my husband got the job at McGill University coaching. And so we moved to Montreal, and I'm not bilingual, so I couldn't find work. So I actually moved back to Calgary. And I worked at the U of C in their kinesiology and health and wellness departments, and did all the stuff that I would do. And again, this depression is just building and building. And one night I did decide that I was going to take my own life. And I didn't really, I had my best friend, actually, she showed up on my doorstep and at midnight-ish. And, you know, obviously another decision was made. But I had the people around me who recognized signs and symptoms and intervened. And so I was really lucky that way. But I didn't feel like I had a group of people to reach out to in terms of the athletic realm. And so I did, obviously, I got counseling and therapy, and now I have, like, this was years ago, I have strategies and coping mechanisms and things, because I still do deal with depression. Definitely not at that level, but there are still, like, times when I recognize I need to you know, get a hold of some things. And so, you know, to carry on, I moved back to McGill. I was the head strength coach there for 4 years, and I ran their fitness center. And I had to get 2 hip replacements because I had hip dysplasia. And so that kind of ruined my absolute love of strength and conditioning, my professional career, and I had to reinvent myself. So I understand these kids from an athletic point of view, from an injury point of view, from life circumstances, despair. And so I feel like I can really connect with somebody who is really hurting. And so from there, my husband resigned under protest. He was the head coach at the time. And we moved out of Montreal. That's why I kind of laugh with your reference to the angry English people. And so we moved and lived, you know, don't ever quit a job unless you have one. That is truth. So we moved to Calgary. I had to live with my parents for a little bit. That was always fun. And surprisingly, the coping strategies that we had developed really stuck and helped me. And it didn't, I didn't fall back into a really heavy depression or feeling of despair. So that was really, it showed me that the tools work, resources do work. And we, you know, Farhan Lalji, he found out Clint had his master's in special ed and was a coach and all this stuff. And so he got him, Clint has his teaching degree. And so he's now coaching high school football in New West. And so at a different level. So we kind of see the kids now from a different point of view, from the university to the youth sport level or high school age group. And it's vastly different. You would be amazed at how different just a 1 or 2 years make, like you guys were saying. And so definitely developing tools age specific is, I think, very important. And I was glad that you guys said that, because they're going to have different things that you need to tackle or address for the different age groups. And yeah, and so now obviously I do the online media stuff with CanadaFootballChat.com. But this is an initiative that I'm really passionate about. And I love to partner with everybody that is, I want to say reputable, but like it knows what they're doing, I guess. And has a passion and a focus and a drive to really help these kids. And so I don't, like I said, I don't want to reinvent wheels. I don't want to create my own like niche and hold on to it. I would love to have people collaboration and sharing information, and because it will benefit everybody. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and what I would like to do. And this is very new. We're only like 3-4 months into this. And so I am learning. This is definitely, our website is not to diagnose or anything like that. We just want to come alongside and identify when a kid needs help and be able to direct them to the appropriate people. And then, you know, like down the road, I had discussions with Jim, Jim Mullen, sorry, I'm just kind of slaying, about, you know, creating policy and procedure, and, you know, maybe step one, like they do, like Football Canada does with the certificates of concussions and coaching. You have a mental health certificate that all coaches have to take, like an online hour course. And then, you know, so that they are able to identify basic signs and symptoms. You know, they are able to have okay, how do I navigate this first conversation? Like things like that. I think that's really important. And then being able to, you know, obviously within all the legal realm and the bureaucratic stuff that you know, obviously has to be addressed, that those things are put in place. And then lastly, the third thing that I was really thinking about, and I'm surprised there isn't out there, is that, you know, these programs have had suicides. I've talked to coaches, high school coaches who have had suicides on their team, and the coach, they're like, we don't know what to do after. You know, it's like a PTSD. They don't know where to go and how to have the conversation with the team after it's happened. So I think it's really important to have that closure piece as well. Okay, so let's talk about what just happened, everybody, because I think holding that in and kids like being scared of it and not knowing, okay, why did this person do that? I think it's really important that the coach or the person who is the parent or the support group person has those tools to direct those conversations, because I don't think you can just have something like that happen within a team and not talk about it afterwards. I think that's actually really dangerous. And so I think that it's important to develop those types of things within a policy and procedure manual, so that again, it's done with the people who have done the research and who are qualified to give those directives. And I just think that that's a really important piece that needs to be developed down the road. So these are the things that I'm kind of thinking about. I'm a real, like, I have probably way too big of dreams, but I think it's really important to find people who you can collaborate with to make it happen. So that's in a nutshell where I'm coming from. I hope that wasn't offensive to anyone. My own personal story. I'm a very open book, and I'm very comfortable with sharing it. So I just want people to know why this is so important to me and why I'm passionate about it. So that's that.
Thanks so much for sharing, Katie. It's really a vulnerable thing to do, and it was really brave of you. So thanks a lot for sharing your story. I think we have a few minutes left, so it would be great, like, if anyone wants to kind of bounce off of whatever was said, you know, tonight, or if you want to share any of your own experiences or have questions. I mean, we're happy to stay a few minutes longer if need be. But yeah, the floor is open.
I'd just like to thank everyone for bringing this kind of to the forefront. I actually wish there'd be more people here. It seems how this is coast to coast. Like, I'm in Thunder Bay, Ontario. I kind of look at these things, like, I coach high school, I coach minor football, I've been involved in the provincial programs through Football Manitoba. Like, it's just what I like doing as a volunteer, and I wish it paid up here, right? Because that's kind of like the life passion of mine. One of the things we even say just for our high school program, you always feel like you can do more, but you never know where to start. You know, after the season, when another coach from the team phones and says, hey, do you know so-and-so is actually getting his stomach pumped out, he's at the emergency right now, like, he just OD'd, and you had no idea that the kid was even using anything, right? When you have to have younger coaches on your staff to walk around and say, hey, do you think so-and-so is, like, high on something right now? Because you just, like, you don't know where the kids are coming from. You know, in my case, like, I feel like an old 38-year-old, but the amount of times kids will call you dad because they come from a split house, and, you know, and the role that you can play. For myself, like, this is something I would, you know, both sides of these programs, one, just from the athlete perspective of on field, and two, you know, the other big part of, you know, being what's between their ears. And how else can you help? Because as a volunteer coach who is not a teacher, I think it goes a lot further, where they are more willing to possibly open up. And to be honest, I think from my perspective, I might be more willing to want to help than some teachers who will just see him as another kid or as another football player. Where some of these guys I've been involved with from minor all the way to high school. So you're on a 10-year journey with them. Mm-hmm. So just from a coach perspective, a parent perspective with a 9-year-old in the game, this is something I'd, like, really love on both sides of this program to be involved with. I think, Katie, I've already signed in the required fields to your website already, so hopefully that went through. So yeah, if there's more information that comes out on these things, I'd love to be able to be a part, because here in Thunder Bay, I always kind of say we're middle of Canada, but middle of nowhere, and we get forgotten pretty quick, but we got great kids, and we got great kids who have some big problems too, just like anywhere else. So it's something I'd love to be able to explore and see how I can help you guys gather data, and how I can be a role in trying to help these kids.
Well, if you want, we can always, you can share with us or your email if you want to stay in touch with us. We can definitely keep you on our mailing list, or if you want, I could just write one of our emails in there, and so all of you will have our email, just in case anyone wants to reach out privately, or please, this is really the way to go, is to keep being all involved and being connected. And so please, I encourage anyone to reach out whenever they have questions. We're always open.
Yeah. And this is, I'm so glad you brought it up, like about where you're located and some of these access issues, because in this partnership that we've been developing with Football Canada, that's been one of the main focuses, is how do we make all of these things as accessible as possible. And our kind of master evil plan is to just keep pushing mental health down people's throats until the culture is different. The more we talk about it, the more comfortable people get, the less scary it becomes, and then the better an environment and the safer it is for everyone involved. So I think you bring up some really very, very important points, and we're very mindful of that. And to see that we have people who want to be allies in this process is really heartening.
Yeah, I just, from my personal side, my wife will probably continue to tell me I sometimes do way too much. Like, I'm on our local board here. I basically work, I filled 3 roles this year because 2 people quit midway through.
Wow.
On our return to play for flag committee, we have our largest numbers in flag for fall football here ever. We're one of the only sports up and running. It's discussions with your health unit. How do you change things? Being a part of Football Manitoba, coaching minor football, coaching high school. So this is where I'm not always about the win at the end. It's on the scoreboard, it's the win at the end is seeing where the kid goes and how they grow, develop. Did they get next level? I was just at a signing ceremony for a kid I've coached from minor who's going to U of A next year. He's been O-lineman of the year, for Football Canada. It's seeing those kids just progress. To me, that's more important than saying, I won a City U12 championship as a coach, in 1982 or whatever. Like that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's making sure that you're there to help develop that kid so they become into, that citizen that you want to run into on the street when they're 20, 30 years old, and that they're doing the same thing for the next group. So no, thanks for doing this kind of stuff.
Speaking our language.
Seriously, thank you so much. I mean, on behalf of Football Canada, everything that we do comes down to the athlete at the end, and we partner with these incredible people just so that the athlete gets a better experience. So that way everyone can be healthier, everyone can be happier, everyone can be more active, and we want to do that across Canada.